By communicating with people, by looking at them, you, and again, these were things I couldn't articulate at the time, but you could reach their heart. And if you can reach somebody's heart, you're able to gather insights, friendships, goodwill. A lot of things happen from that.
So in the age of Hangouts and FaceTime and holograms, everything but talking to somebody face-to-face, you wrote a book that is an endorsement of and a celebration of face-to-face meetings,
right,
and conversations. Why?
Well, it's a culmination of a lot of events. As I was making movies and television shows and things like that, documentaries, any narrative size, shape, or form, I started off, I was an acutely dyslexic kid, and meaning that I couldn't read a word until I was in the 5th grade. And then maybe it progressed itself into a sentence or two in the 6th grade and on. But I found I had to find some sort of survival mechanism, and that survival mechanism was human connection. I mean, I didn't identify it as such because it was a reaction to something. But I really found that by communicating with people, by looking at them, you, and again, these were things I couldn't articulate at the time, but you could reach their heart. And if you can reach somebody's heart, you're able to gather insights, friendships, goodwill. A lot of things happen from that.
Yeah.
And so as life went on, I graduated from college and I pretty quickly became a storyteller and a producer, but I instituted this kind of discipline where every single week I'd meet a new person who was expert in anything other than what I did for a living, to expand my knowledge of anything in the world other than what I was doing for a living.
Yeah.
But I found that a byproduct of all of that was also this human connection again. And because I'm in the feelings business, that's what we do for a living,
right,
is ignite feelings. It all found it was very compatible to my career as well. And specifically, this particular book happened it was just sort of an epiphany. 2 years ago, Veronica, my wife, and I added a new person to our home group, staff, and everything. Her name is Mary, and she'd been there a couple of months, and she said to Veronica, just like, well, I really like working here, and I really like your husband, Brian. And my wife said, like, why? No, she didn't.
These stories don't always go the right way.
She said, well, because every time, even though you haven't spoken to him a lot, every time he speaks to me, he looks me directly in the eyes, and it makes me feel like a human being. And I just thought about the power of that, what that is, just on its most minimal basis. When you put your phone down, and by the way, I use my phone as much as, or more than anyone in the room, believe me. But when you put it down and you actually look at somebody and you connect with them, you see them and they see you, you're creating equality, you're democratizing a system, like human nature. And it was really powerful to me. It became, again, like this epiphany where I was able to go back the last 40 years of my life, and I thought, this all happened because clearly I must actually look at people,
yeah,
again, because of this dyslexia and moving on that way. So I sort of felt like, well, looking at somebody is the Wi-Fi to human connection itself. And then I just kind of built it out into what became this book.
But that way of validating the other person you're talking to basically starts off with, we're two people talking.
We're two people talking, yeah.
And with that comes obviously a different sense of trust and letting your guard down, and then magic can come from that, right?
It really can. I mean, and Ted and I have worked together, and we see each other as much as we can, but we're both busy guys. But we've always, I felt, and I hope this is not presumptuous, we access on a similar value system. We're both pretty kind to people
yeah,
in a pretty rough business. And
like you, I actually like people.
Yeah.
I think that's a big part of it. I actually enjoy talking to people, and I don't try to avoid having the conversation or clear my day so I don't have to have that meeting. I actually want to.
You enjoy it. In fact, I just recently was at your place, and you popped out to say hey, and got into a longer conversation than you probably should have because you were then late to a meeting.
Well, we're doing today what we've never done before, which is have a conversation for 20 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. That's funny. but the value in our business of human connection, and I think in all of yours, is that you can't do anything without human connection. You can't raise an A round, B round. I couldn't have made 100 movies and raised billions of dollars to make those hundreds of movies, because you have to evangelize groups of people and get them to believe in something that's not doesn't materially exist. It's an idea, it's amorphous. And you have to make people feel like it can be more than that. You have to be able to give life to a vision about a mermaid, in my case, or any one of these movies. They're just ideas.
And do you find, as you obviously have an incredible body of work, what it required to get people on board back when it was Splash versus what it is to something, today, how much has that changed for you?
I still have to beg.
That's what
even with lots
of people.
Even with tremendous amount, of success, and I was really amazed, like after the success of Splash, because nobody wanted to do a movie about a mermaid, right? No one thought, well, that's a great idea. It was called Splash with Tom Hanks. No one said, do it. I had hundreds of no's, and eventually I got it made. It was made. I got an Oscar nomination as a writer and a producer, and it really went well. But my next project that I was in love with, everybody turned down again. But then I quickly, you don't know this part of the story, but I thought about this. How can I actually cope with that? Because I was, and I realized that Steven Spielberg's E.T. was put into turnaround after Jaws, Close Encounters, and Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah.
So it's just alignment, It's nobody knows anything. And often people don't really know the heartbeat of what something is. So what to them was a mermaid was to me a love story. Or the movie 8 Mile was, no one wanted to do that, but they thought, well, that's rap battles. But to me, it was about self-actualization.
Right.
And same with Friday Night Lights. So, and I'm sure this happens to you. I mean, you often have to use the goodwill that you accrue by working your butt off to get people to take a leap of faith with you.
And it works both ways, because I've got people, really talented people like yourself doing what you just described, and then us still being in the position in convincing people that this is a place to bring your work. This is a way that we can bring your film into the culture. Right now with Irishman is an example of that.
Irishman, let's give you a hand for that.
And look, I see Jane Rosenthal right there, one of the producers of the film. But I do think what's amazing about that movie, by way of example, is the movie itself. Martin Scorsese making a movie about mobsters, which he's pretty proven in this area. Yeah. For more than 10 years, almost 13 years, going door to door, doing what you just described, and getting no's everywhere because it was something different. That it required a level of, and I think on my side of it, first of all, saying that we wanted to do it, but the other one was being convinced first by Marty and the producers and everybody that why this is going to be an incredible project. It's an enormous budget. It's a very epic scope in film. But also then sitting down with the tech team from ILM, who were developing technology that did not yet exist to do the de-aging process on the film. And so saying yes to that, knowing that at the end of the film, it might not work.
Right.
After you have to spend all the money to find out.
No, I know.
But I don't think we could have done it if we didn't have that face-to-face conversation. Where you can look someone in the eye and know that we look at it was 80% there. Right. So the bet was that they were going to be able to close the last gap of it, during the course of the production of the film. But the passion and the desire to get it right is something you kind of see in people's eyes too.
So we're faced with this all the time because I'm a movie producer and a writer and television stuff, and he runs a very, very successful Netflix studio. But we do have to take lots of leaps of faith, and we also know that you have to do things that other people don't want to do, and those are the outliers, and those are the potential unicorns. And like no one wanted to do Empire. It was a 90% African-American network television show. But I had one that was kind of funny. I just told you as we walked on stage that on Apollo 13, which was you saw it on the reel for just a moment. Do you guys know this movie, Apollo 13? So it was a failed mission to land on the moon anyway. And it was sort of dodgy to begin with because everybody knew they made it back safely. So why would I make a movie about it? Everyone knows the end. And actually I'll digress, I'll go quickly though. So basically, I somehow chose to do that because I didn't see it as that. I saw it as a survival movie. And so all of a sudden, because I'm thinking it's a survival movie, and other people are thinking it's an astronaut movie, we had a list of what would be the best astronauts. It was Kevin Costner, Tom Cruise, all those, action stars. We're all ready to make an offer to one of these big-time action stars.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, and I said it in the room, I said, but wait, who does the world want to save the most? Tom Hanks, who wasn't on the list. Said, we want him back. So we end up with Tom Hanks. So now it's Tom Hanks and Ron and I.
You had to care about who was up in the capsule. That's right.
Yeah, you had to care about, that's what matters, really.
Right.
So that eclipses the story itself, is the emotionality and your connection to somebody that is able to create a palpable experience like that. So now it's the three of us, and we have to enlist NASA, because without NASA, we can't really make the movie. And NASA is a really big factor because we couldn't have done zero gravity. All these things would have been disabled.
Because they're the only ones that have the technology that you could use.
Exactly, the technology. And also we wanted their validation that we were doing something. We were blending science and cinema.
Yeah.
That was our thesis, along with saving the person we want to save. So now all of a sudden we make the movie, and it does become a really big success. And we think, oh, this is the end of everything. Great, we high five, it's successful. Months later, we get invited into the Oscar race. And we think, okay, so we get 9 Oscar nominations, which is really big, and personified through this Best Picture nomination. And every odds maker in America and the world, because everybody's betting on everything all the time. We know that. And every single odds maker says Apollo 13 is going to win. Oddly enough, it was intersecting with the 25th anniversary of NASA. So anyway,
the planets are literally aligning for you.
Everything, it's all, yes, exactly. The planets are literally finally aligning. And so I have written my speech out. I've got it right there in my pocket. I'm ready to go. I'm positive. Now I'm in the 5th row at the Oscars, and Sidney Poitier is going to open the final envelope of the night. The very deliberate Oscar and esteemed winning actor, Sidney Poitier. And he's got the envelope in his hand, and I'm like this, looking at him. I'm like having a date with him right now. I can't believe it. I'm like, and so I see he's taking it, ripping it apart, and I see what looks to be an imperceptible B rolling off of his lip. I think he's going to say Brian. So I get up. I couldn't help myself. I get up to accept the Oscar. I had my hand in my pocket. I got up. It's on film if you look. And Sidney Poitier rips it open. He says, Braveheart. So this happened. So I am so embarrassed. It's the most embarrassing moment of my life. In front of all my peers, 40 million people, I back up like this to my chair. And I don't want to fall down going to my chair. So I go like this, and I turn around, and a chairman of a competitive studio goes like this. And it was horrible. So I sit down like this, and then right next to me is Ron Howard, he's sunk into his chair, Tom Hanks, and Jim Lovell, the actual astronaut, was there. He reaches over Tom and Ron, grabs my wrist, and he said, I never made it to the moon either. 'Cause So, through the all right, that's it. Okay, what do we do now?
The big question is, what hurts worse?
It all hurts. Yeah, actually, it was right. That's at that moment in time I started taking Ambien to go to sleep.
By the way, so much for eye contact, and while you really were studying that moment, then you called it wrong a little.
All that stuff, But with Jim Lovell reaching over, he did look me in the eyes, and I felt like safe for a second. And he said that to me, and I thought, okay. Like, you were trying to get to the moon. I'm just trying to win an Oscar 5 feet away from me. So anyway.
So you mentioned at the beginning your personal curiosity and your meeting people face to face that led to all this. Tell me a couple of those meetings. By the way, the first time you and I met face to face, I was one of your curiosities.
You were.
The early days of Netflix, and you.
Very early days, like 16 years ago, I think.
Yeah, so we were invited in to be to entertain you.
I know. I wish I would have said.
It was great. That was amazing.
Yeah, I wish I would have said, "Could I join? Be the number 3 employee?"
Yes, it would have been awesome. It would have been awesome.
No, a lot of these curiosity conversations. First of all, the rule of them for me is to not ever have an ask. So I don't meet people. There's no condition where there's an ambition. It's just, I want to know about your subject and your expertise in science or medicine or politics or architecture, and you might want to know about what I have. So it's trying to create this, a relationship. But I found that these great insights occurred. So 25 years ago, I was in a taxi cab and I was driving, in town. I was in New York, going to Midtown. I hear this guy, this crazy rapper named Old Dirty Bastard. And I'm thinking, like 25 years ago, not a lot of people want to be called Old Dirty Bastard.
Yeah, no.
And he's just really wild. So I decided I'm going to go meet ODB. So I go meet this guy, Old Dirty Bastard. He's really crazy. He's insane. I started thinking about East Coast hip hop. I'm thinking, wow, this is what this is. And I started to learn about it. And because I started to learn about it, that got me on a journey where I was able to build, produce, and kind of invent this movie called 8 Mile, which Eminem, of course, did. He inhabited it, and he wins an Oscar for it himself, which was pretty phenomenal. That was a big victory. Then, as far as a strand or the food chain itself, that 8 Mile turned into a conversation with Jay-Z, and we produced this movement called Made in America at Love Park, and then a documentary, which then became American Gangster, which then became the Wu-Tang Clan a 10-hour series that's already fully aired on Hulu. I'm going to get these things right. And obviously more to come. But I have many of these little insights that built to strands of either personal joy, a vacation. I went to the Atacama Desert. Did anyone been to the Atacama Desert? It's the least precipitation in the world. To go to the Ama and see stars. So there's all these things. It's just, for me, I met my wife. I have a fantastic life. There's a lot of joy in it, and it intersects with narrative storytelling.
And do you ever find yourself...
and the worst that happens is you make people feel good by looking at them in the elevator instead of not.
And do you find yourself being disciplining yourself not to do the phone call instead of the meeting, or not to the email that should have been a phone call, I see what you mean. I think I see what you mean. Well, I always make a phone call to somebody. And I have 3 assistants, but I make every single phone call myself. I don't want someone... You get the...
I dial every single one on my cell. Every single one. I just hit it right away because I get to lobby assistants who will then be my boss someday. And I've been doing this for 30 years. And I don't make somebody wait. It's unlike the power trips we grew up with in Hollywood, so we become kind of anomalies for that. But, well, how do you do it, Ted? You are look, here's the thing. I do what I do. He's the busiest man in show business, because you started with nothing.
True, but I do think it's a very, very, very similar. I've always been very inspired by what you've been able to do and how you've been able to juggle and manage it and really make people feel important. And I think it starts with actually thinking they are important. And I actually do
That's
think
a really
that most
good
of the folks
point.
I talk to. So I don't think I'm, of all the things I could do, I don't think I could fake it very well. No. So when I do.
And people feel that with you.
I think so. I hope so.
If we had all the other network president, or we had the chairmans of other places, you're different.
Well, I do find particularly this time of year when we have 3 to 5 events a night right now until the end of the year. And people are like, how do you do that? I said, because I like it. I actually, you have to kind of enjoy it.
Well, I went to your first Emmy party where you finally, Netflix was just starting and you had some Emmys. And we were there because we had Arrested Development.
Right.
And you made Mitch Horowitz, the creator of Arrested Development, and Ron Howard and myself feel really important, valued.
And the key for us now is that we still have to do that today at the global volume that we do it at today. So, and I think this has become a great guidepost for that and a good reminder of how important it is that even though you have the technology and the ability and the sometimes the motivation to do it without meeting face to face, do it.
Exactly.
So please, thank you, Brian Grazer.
All right.